htmlX. htmlX is a library that you can include in HTMLs in order to have dynamic content with pure HTML tags, which means you don't need JavaScript or different libraries. You just use HTML tags in order to render dynamic content. So before we get into htmlX, let me state the state of affairs as it is today. So today, if you want to create a website or a web page, then you have multiple options. The two main category of options is one, creating a template that is fully rendering the HTML on the server side. So you can use basically any server, be it Apache PHP, be it a Laravel framework, be it Spring or Java, any server, or Bash script on the server side, or Python, and you basically generate the HTML. So if there is like dynamic content in the HTML, if you take something from the database, the HTML that would be returned from the server to the client would already contain this data because you did all this rendering on the server side. This is a great option because it simplifies the whole process, and today's things are faster, so it makes sense to go back to old school, like instead of messing things up on the client side and making things complex. If you still want to do the dynamic rendering on the client side, then the basic building block is to refer with JavaScript to an HTML tag on the script, let's say to a div or to a CSS tag, and then you say replace the content of this div or replace the content of this HTML tag. You do this with JavaScript. In addition, if you want to get content from the server, then you do an Ajax call to the server, you get the content, and then you say, okay, with this content, and you do this from the client side, with this content that I did a GET request, I want to replace the content of the HTML. So all this is fine, and you have many ways to do this with plain JavaScript. You can use jQuery, you can use React, Vue, all of these libraries have additional tools for you to make this more dynamic and to make components, etc. However, it looks like htmlX is making it even simpler and more HTML-y. What I mean by more HTML-y, according to their documentation, then htmlX is a library that allows you to access modern browser features directly from HTML rather than using a JavaScript. So to understand htmlX, let's first take a look at a standard anchor tag. So with the standard anchor tag, you have tag ahref and then /blog, and then you write blog. So this anchor tag tells the browser when a user clicks on this link, issue an HTTP GET request to get the /blog, to get the page of the blog, and load the response of the blog content on the browser window. So with that in mind, let's consider another HTML snippet that would include htmlX. In this snippet, what they added with the script that you import, a few hx tags, a few hx attributes. You have a div and you say hx post. In the div tag, you have an attribute named hx post /clicked and hx swap outer HTML. What this tells htmlX is when user clicks on this div, then issue HTTP post request to clicked, and you didn't write any JavaScript or any strange code in React or whatever. You use the same tag. Inside the div tag, you said hx post /clicked. So inside the div tags with the attributes of the div tag, you are saying do an HTTP post to clicked and then replace the DOM. I think this is super powerful. This means that you can write a simple HTML and you can simply have hx post attribute to any div. And with this hx post attribute, you are doing a call to a server. installing the htmX is as simple as including a script tag on your HTML. So basically, to do an AJAX call, you use simple attributes in HTML such as hexget, hexpost, hexput. All these are simple attributes that you use in HTML. So if I have a div tag in HTML and I include the attribute hexpost/messages, this will take the content of this div tag and put it into the server. Amazing. In addition, I can say hexpost to some URL in a div tag and then hextrigger mouse enter. So this would mean that it would call the server when the mouse enters this div tag. And this is also amazing because this is a great example of a great abstraction, because we use the HTML and then we include the libraries, for example in jQuery, and then you say I want to refer to this tag, and then I could do an AJAX call to the server, and only when the AJAX call is returned, then I have a callback, and in this callback I refer to a div tag and replace its content. Here, in the div tag that you want to replace its content, you say attribute hexpost to some server URI, and you specify what to replace. So you can have a hextrigger on div tags such as click, so this would trigger the htmlX on click. And this is the basic concept of htmlX. In htmlX, you write just HTML tags. From the HTML tags, you say hexpost or hexget attributes, simple attributes for div tags. And then you also specify on what condition on hextrigger. So this makes all the calling of the server and the replacing of the dynamic content very nice. It's very nice looking way to have dynamic content on the HTML. And I want to repeat again that this is the dynamic side of the story, more of the SPA, more of the single page apps, or where you change content dynamically. There is also the other side of the story that we mentioned on the beginning of this episode, which is rendering the full HTML on the server side, which makes a lot of sense as well, because it makes things easier, and you have the single project where you have the HTML and you can refer directly to objects on the backend. So this was a brief introduction to htmX. I think it's a great little library that can make great little projects or even bigger ones very simple in manner of changing dynamic content.